Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Three tips here, and what I have here is silver cell anode filters. These things are hard as a rock. So what I need to do first thing here is I'm adding some distilled water to each of these containers, and the goal here is to get these things softened up so that I can get the slimes off of these filters and into a beaker to process them. I have the anode filters well hydrated. So now what we're going to do is get the material out of the filters down into this beaker. I'll put these filters in a separate beaker. What we'll do is let this settle out and then get the liquid, the clarified liquid, off of there. Leave the solids in the bottom of the beaker, get the clarified liquid off. And this over here, we can probably go ahead and start processing those cloth filter bags right away. First, I'll add a little bit of distilled water. Now I'll put in some nitric acid. This will get rid of all the precious metals that have soaked into the cloth. I'm adding some more water and some more acid. Cover this completely. Get all the solids to dissolve. Now what we'll do is, this has already started to settle out pretty good here. What I'm going to do is reach in here and give this a good stir. And then allow this, you see that mud down in there? This thing's caked with solids. Give this a good stir. And then we'll let this settle completely and try to pull off the liquid. Here I'm pushing the filters down into the acid to try to get everything to dissolve that will go into solution with the nitric. Over here you see I've got the solids, the liquid is settled out completely. So now what we're going to do is we're going to siphon off that blue liquid. It's going to contain lots of silver. So I just siphon it off to a clean beaker. Then what we'll do is we'll move the beaker of siphoned liquid up to the fume hood. And I'm going to put a piece of copper in here. And what we'll do, this silver will come out of solution on the copper, and the copper will go into solution. This is called cementing the silver out of the solution. Here you can see that the silver is already starting to come out of solution on the copper. I'm adding a little bit more silver nitrate solution to cover that piece of copper up completely. And this is a time lapse, about an hour and a half, I guess, time lapse of the silver cementing out onto the piece of copper in accordance with the reactivity series of metals. Silver, being a less reactive metal, will cement out on the copper because the copper is a more reactive metal. This is our cement silver in this jar right here, and it's still coming out of solution. What I'll do is just pull this thing out of the way for right now. This is our anode filters that we boiled in nitric. It's starting to cool down, and I see some silver nitrate starting to crystallize out in there, so I've diluted it with some distilled water. Okay, here is our silver cell slimes with most of the liquid removed. What I'll try to do is strain out some of the shot that's in there. Let's see if I can get this square here. We're going to try to scoop some of the slimes into this filter or this basket. I'm just slowly trying to rinse the material off of our pieces of silver. Been out here about a half an hour. And while this has taken a long time, this should save some time having to redissolve all this silver and nitric like I've done in the past. I'm starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. What we're going to do now is take this. Let's put this down low down here. And what I'll do is add some water. And then we'll just stir this around a little bit in here to loosen up some more of the mud. Now let's see if we can get this up out of here and into this beaker. I'll set this aside and save it for the next batch. Now let's see if we can get the rest of this rinsed off of here with some distilled water. All right, let me throw this into a beaker. I'll put some water in here. Let this continue to soak. Maybe get a little bit more stuff off of there. Now let's get some more of our slimes in here. I'm switching to this beaker over here. This one's getting full. So now what we'll do is we'll start rinsing. I've got all of the solids separated from the pieces of silver. That's this back here. We should be able to run those back through the silver cell. And then What we'll do with these two up here is we'll wait for these to settle out completely, and then we'll get the liquid off of here, and then we'll gather up our solids and see what we got in there as far as precious metals goes in these solids in the bottom of these beakers. These are our solids down in the bottom of these beakers. They're sitting on a solution that's mostly distilled water. So what I want to do is I want to use, it's going to have a little silver in it, that solution. But I want to get in here, get this piece of copper. This reaction is complete. I'm going to stick it down in this bucket. Now let's get this out of the way. This is cement silver. Rinse it off, melt it in the shot, run it through the silver cell. Now what I'll do is I'll siphon these two solutions that are going to be mostly water. They're going to have a little silver in them. I'm going to siphon them down into my silver cementation bucket. Now what we'll do is add some silver nitrate solution to the bucket and get all the silver cemented out of here. You can see the silver is already starting to come out of solution on those pieces of copper. I'm going to pour, this is a highly concentrated silver nitrate solution, so it's got to be diluted, otherwise it'll start to passivate on those pieces of copper and the reaction will stop. You can see the reaction taking place. This does produce some fumes. So what I'll do is I'm going to cover this up. Give it a stir here. Cover this up and put it outdoors under a rain cover. Here's our solids in these two beakers. I think what we'll do now is start treating these solids with nitric acid. What I'll do is I'll take this container up here. This is going to be full of nitric acid. I'm just going to add it to these solids down in this beaker. Alrighty, got some nitric in here now. Just gonna let this react for a little while. I don't know how it's gonna do. I don't want it to flare up on me and boil over, so I'm just gonna use the nitric that we had in there and just watch it for a second, see what's gonna happen. We'll do the same with this one. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to this. And now some nitric acid. Just a little bit, because I don't know what this is going to do. Nitric is notorious for producing a delayed runaway reaction. So that's about 50 milliliters of nitric acid in that one. here we go with this one. I think what we'll do now is transfer all of the solids into a single beaker. I'm going to set this up on the heat and start applying some gentle heat. I just added 50 more milliliters of nitric acid, gave it a stir. So now what we're going to do is just let this react until we get rid of all those fumes and anything that's soluble in nitric. Get it to go into solution. I've had this on high heat for about 2 or 3 hours. Most of the fumes have cleared up. I'm going to turn the heat off and let this cool down. Here's our beaker that contains the liquid, and there's going to be solids down on the bottom of that. I've allowed it to settle and cool overnight. So let's get it down off of here and down onto a dish here. Yeah, you can see there's a nice ring of solids down there. You can see some of the silver nitrate has crystallized out of the solution, and we've got a thick layer of mud that still remains on the bottom of the beaker. I will go ahead and siphon the solution off. I've got our silver in solution. It's probably got a bunch of palladium in it as well. This is all silver nitrate crystals. And what I'll need to do to get that to dissolve, the only thing I can think to do is add some distilled water to this and is stirred up and let it settle. This should dissolve the silver nitrate crystals. Give it a stir. Now what we'll do is filter the solution that we just siphoned off. got all that pulled through the filter now. Let's get this solution out of this flask. I've got a clean beaker. So what we'll do is add our filtered solution to this beaker. The solution should contain palladium and silver. But before we go all in, I'm going to draw up a sample of this solution. And what we'll do is I've got some dimethylgloxine here. Doesn't dissolve too well in water, but I put it in the microwave and heated it up a little bit. So what we'll do is draw some of this DMG up, add it to our solution, and there you see we get a precipitate almost instantly. That should be palladium. Sit here and react for a second. I've got some more DMG dissolved in a little bit of water. Here's our test. That precipitate is going to be palladium, so we've definitely got some palladium in here. So now what we'll do is I'm adding some DMG to this while I stir it up. Should form palladium in here for us. Separate the palladium from the silver. I don't know how much palladium is in here. I don't know how much DMG is in this container. So everything's a mystery. I'm just going to keep adding it, I guess, until no more salt will form. The solution with our solids in it have been allowed to settle for the better part of a day. We've got the palladium precipitated out over here in this one. So now what we're going to do is we're going to siphon the liquid out of this beaker down into a filter flask. Now what we'll do is let's move this thing out of the way. what we'll do is get these solids into this filter, get the rest of this liquid pulled off. While I'm getting the liquid pulled off of the solids, capturing it in our filter flask, what I'll do is I've got some dimethylgloxine here in the jar. We'll add a few grams of it to this flask, so we can use it to precipitate out the palladium. DMG does not dissolve well in water, but it does dissolve better in hot water. So I'm going to go heat this up in the microwave. I've got all the liquid pulled through this filter. Now what we'll do is add the filter back into here. Now what we'll do is take our filtered solution here. It's going to have silver and some palladium in it. We're going to add it to this clean beaker. Don't have enough room in there. Alright, let's try to even this out a little bit. Here's the beaker with the solids in it. I'm going to add a little distilled water to this. Now we're going to hit it with some more nitric acid. See if there's anything that's nitric soluble still left in these solids. Start out with about 100 milliliters. 150, maybe that's 200, I guess. I don't know. And now what we'll do is give this a stir. Oh yeah, we're getting some fumage, so that means we're reacting the nitric with something in here. Now we can set this up on the heat and let this cook for a while. Let's bring our silver solutions up here. These are going to be silver and palladium. Here's my DMG. I've got it dissolved in a little hot water. What we'll do now is add it to these solutions as we stir. Try Try to get the palladium to come out of solution. Okay, I've got the palladium precipitating out of these solutions. I've got the palladium precipitated from that solution. All that should be left in there now is silver. Over here we're cooking our solids in some more nitric acid to see if we can get anything that's soluble in nitric to go in solution. When I get done with these nitric boils, all I should have left in there in those solids is some black powder that will consist of some platinum group metals and some gold. So I think this will be a convenient place for us to stop. So this will conclude part 1 of the silver cell anode filters refining series of videos. Thank you for watching.